Okay, good morning, everyone, and we we are resuming our work with Identify as Being, and we'll have to maybe keep the sort of drone down because it keeps on breaking as I'm talking, so it probably is not necessary anymore to have that. There's only a few of us here right now, and thus it is when one tries to restart something after a number of months. And of course, this is not a great time in the United States for most of it. It's the wee hours of the morning, 1 o'clock, midnight, whatever. But maybe on the West Coast, someone will join us. Now, I'd like to lead us in a little meditation and try to somehow grasp some of these higher states of consciousness. We use words that seem to be arising out of the abstract mind, but can we go beyond the words so we begin to experience something of the quality which leads to triadal consciousness and monadic awareness? Because the whole subject here is a factor which is above and beyond, above and beyond our usual focus of attention. Maybe it is assumed, and maybe also it is not regarded as essential, but of course it is the most essential factor. So this is okay, Michael, that we are viewing this screen right now for the meditation. And then I'll switch to some things which have to do with the terms we use, because the terms we are using are coming out of the abstract mind, which means a little bit of the completion of the antikarana in its lower phases, lower triadal phases. And this, of course, is not in any sense a beginning type of class. As a matter of fact, if I were thinking about its value, it transcends our usual academic studies. And so it is a great adventure in searching for states of awareness which normally are not part of esoteric schools, at least at the beginning. We have other classes for that. This is a class that deals with the absolute fundamental of things, and that is the factor of being, not just looked upon, but identified as, which means that you recognize yourself as the very essence of that which is irreducible and fundamental to all perceptions. And I call the method of identification here, about which the Tibetan occasionally speaks, I call it infuception. Infuception. And that infuception, wait a second. Yes, please come in.
Michael, I cannot get in. I have tried for a long time.
Well, my wife cannot get into the. Michael, would you send her the link kindly, please? And we'll try. Maybe it will work for her. Well, you know, we have these restarting pains. So this infuception means there is some essence which infuses all perceptions. Everything that we call a thing is really a perception. And I'm going to go beyond that in saying that if we perceive anything, it is a self-perception. And of course, I don't mean a self in the little sense of self. I mean what we really are when you begin to peel away all the layers of what you think yourself to be. Now, the practicality of all of this will escape many of us, and maybe it will escape all of us at some time. But occasionally there dawns the idea that we are something more than that which we normally perceive, whether form or various kinds of substance. Sometimes they call these things arupa, excuse me, which means without form, and yet the whole universe is a form. So what we're looking for finally is something which is truly formless, yet absolutely intimate to what we are. Now just think about that for a minute. What we're looking for is something that is formless. You know, it's we are so busy learning about our planet, learning about our particular universe, which is only one of an infinitude of universes, which has forever been and forever will be, that we, in a way, get lost in particulars. But what we're dealing with here is not about particulars at all. It's about the reduction. You know, of course, excuse me that I have to use this kind of language. This is not Master DK's language. And of course, he's teaching us about the content of the planet and the content of the solar system and the local cosmos, and we absolutely have to pay close attention. But what I'm trying to search for here is beyond particulars, into an essence which we discover ourselves to be, which we discover ourselves to be. And that discovery, of course, will come as a bit of a shock, because, you know, everything we thought we were and labored upon and sought to improve is just a special case of our real being, which is absolutely shared with the being of every apparent other self or thing. Now, just think about that for a minute. What we really are, all of us, is absolutely shared as identical with every other being, thing, perception, particular. See, I really am trying to take us into the abstract mind. Now, we do a lot of talking about the abstract mind. And I wonder if we know what it is. I wonder if we know beyond the triad, which is a great impersonal sphere, you know, the spiritual triad. I wonder if we know what can be the perception or the awareness of the monad, which is really, in a way, just the beginning of reality. Now let's see, if this will stop the screen sharing, and let's see, I'm not exactly sure how we can do this, but I would like to kind of just, you know, use my image at first. Michael, if you'd be so kind as to help me do that. You know, basically I'm just talking to you at first. You know, a little bit of a warm-up because we've been away from this for so long. Yes, Michael.
Okay, you are sharing your screen right now. If you just want to show your image, then stop sharing your screen.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. Hi. I have something cosmic behind me here. Well, that's the story, that we are looking for something not only that we all share, but we're looking for something that we all are, and without distinction. Now, you know, we are at the stage of evolution as an emanation from the universal God of our soul, just of our universe, yeah, where we are always looking for relationships. Now think of it, many of us work on the second ray, and we are attempting to discover the proper relationships between things, how they all really fit together and what they mean to each other, what is their function, and what is the destiny of all these many factors. And this is a necessary and very worthwhile pursuit. And we do it all the time. When we work in our normal Moria Federation classes, and when we have our normal webinars and that kind of thing, we are looking for relationships. They can be between very high things and moderate or lower things, or between lower things, but they are things. And we're looking for the relationship between them, among them. But this is a different kind of pursuit, if I can just remind us of that factor. This is transrelational. Let's just think about that for a minute, because what I'm saying is it's beyond the possibility of any relationship. Think of that. Beyond the possibility of any relationship, which means that we are entering the field of identicality, in which relationship does not essentially exist. Now, just think of that for a moment. I'm often going to say, just think of that, ponder on this, as the Tibetan says. Beyond the possibility of any relationship whatsoever, because in order for relationship to exist, you have to have diversity. And we are entering a field in which we realize diversity to be actual and apparent, but not real. So think of that. We are entering a field, what else to call it, I don't know. We are entering a field in which we recognize diversity to be actual. It's sort of a presentation in consciousness, but it's not real. So most of everything that fascinates us in life, even the fact that we can say this on us, is based on discrimination and diversity and the perception that one thing is different from another and that one perception is different from another. And in all actuality, that is true, at least practically true. But there can come something beyond the intellect which revels in finding relationship among diverse perceptions. There can come something else which, in spite of the testimony of the eyes and the senses and everything we perceive with, reveals everything as unified. And I've often said, with this type of perception, the heart center is involved. At least I've never found a way to begin to deal with this unifying factor without the heart center being stimulated or open. And then although, now this is important, although you begin to perceive something that is interfusing everything, you perceive it even though the testimony of the senses relays to you diversity. So you can perceive just as much diversity, variety as anyone else, just the way the masters do. But underlying the diversity and detected by a different function within us is this sameness, revealed by what I've called infuception. So basically what I'm doing here is just kind of refreshing ourselves with the basic vocabulary. Some people look at that vocabulary or experience it and they say, well, you know, why are we playing around with words? I find the words difficult, you know, and well, it's so that we can get another angle in to reality, and that maybe some veil will lift for us, which was always there. And because it's a kind of a see-through veil, you don't know you have it. But all of our perceptions up to a certain time in our lives are actually veiled. We don't see reality. We do not absorb or become reality. And the whole thing about this series of discussions and questions and pursuits is about becoming the reality we are. Now, let me kind of reiterate that. Think of it. What are we doing here? Why are we doing this? We're trying to become the reality that we essentially are. I'm careful about using the word actually, because actually implies something you have to deal with, because it's presented with you as if it were a fact, but it's really an illusion. So actualities to me are illusions. I can only tell you how I perceive it, okay? But essences are beyond actualities. And there's only one essence. No matter where you go, you know, in time and space, excuse me, no matter where you go in time and space, no matter whether it's thousands of universes ahead of us or behind us, in that sequence, infinite, beginningless, endless sequence, there's only one essence. You can't escape it, really, but you certainly can remain in a veiled condition where you don't see it, or it's not a fact in your consciousness. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to become, in recognition, the essence that we are, and that it, at least for some moments in our illusory consciousness as we daily live it, to infusive the essence, to perceive, just an ordinary word, perceive, but to infusive the essence that we are, and that everybody else and everything else is. So it's beyond discrimination, unless you want to say, with the ancient Brahmins and Hindus, that we use the factor of viveka, which means discrimination, and in this case we simply isolate all-pervading essence. We isolate all-pervading essence from the manifold illusion in which we are usually immersed. Now, every day I'm living my life in illusion as I deal with what's happening, as it were. But in the world of essence, nothing is happening, ever. It simply is. And I sometimes joke, that that reality is pointless because, every perception reduces to a point. Now, what a real point is, we'll have to have some programs on that. I always say a true point is next to nothing. And of course, I really mean that. If you think of the words, it's next to nothing or next to no thing. But in real reality, essential reality, there are no points. There are no articulations. There are no distinctions. And a point is an ultimate distinction. And therefore I say, the absolute reality is pointless. So to me, it's like a meaningful joke, but it alerts me a little bit to what I'm looking for. And even using language in this way, what I am looking for, it removes me from the state of identification, of being the same as the sameness. So that's another way of looking at it. If I were to say, maybe if I just take one note today, it would be this. I would say this, that I, and unfortunately my little typewriter here doesn't print E very well. I seek to be, I can't get an E, I can only do that, be the same. And that's the problem. I can't get that fifth letter. I'll reduce it to its proper same as the, and then I'm going to use the word sameness. And the trouble is, unless I go in for computer repair, which is coming up shortly in the relative world, I'm not going to solve this problem. But anyway, that's what apparent I, want. And so I just try to make that work out properly and, say, this is 20. I seek to be the same as the sameness. Very involuted way of getting to the point. I'll speak in normal terms in the relative world. I want to go through life necessarily perceiving variety and actuality, however, alert to being the same as the essential sameness which forever is. Now, let me repeat that I want to find myself to be the same as the essential sameness that ever is, ever, in fact, is, and always has been. You see, we're involved, all of us, who don't really exist by ourselves. We are involved in a beginningless, endless, apparent sequence of universes. Now, if you perceive sequence and one thing after another, already you know it's an illusion, but that's how it looks to us. One universe after another, and pretty well Blavatsky brings that forward, and the ancient doctrine brings that forward. Think of it. One universe after another, which has always been the case and ever will be the case. So how do you calculate an infinitude? There have always been an infinitude of universes, always. There was no beginning ever, and there is no end. And all of these universes, they came out of the sameness. I guess if there was one word or series of words around the same idea, same and sameness, would be very important when you're looking to identify as being. Now, you know, in a sense, you can't really live that way. You have to deal with the world of illusion that at one point, you know, Master DK talks about the phantasmagoria. What a word, huh? Phantasmagoria of life and even of associated persons. If I were to try to look that up, it's the kind of word that only occurs maybe once in the teaching, and I'm going to try to see if I can find it. No, there are actually 5 references. The great phantasmagoria of existence. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll switch over here to the book, you know, or to the books. And here, the ever-shifting phantasmagoria of thought, which we dignify with the high-sounding names of the world and the universe. I wonder if this is Alice Bailey speaking. Yeah, it is. And impersonality is only possible. This is from the Rays and Initiations. To the disciple who truly knows how to love. This is the one I'm looking for. And to him who sees life and its phantasmagoria, including all associated persons, in the light of the spiritual triad, and I would even say, you know, in the light of the monad. Actuality, diversity, all of that is the product of the imagination, and it is part of the illusory phantasmagoria. The essence of things is something else. So what we're watching in our usual perceptions is necessary to watch. It's necessary to watch, but it's not real. It is the phantasmagoria. And we want to be rid of the perception that the phantasmagoria is real while still being able to handle it. We want to be able to, we have to handle it because we live in illusion and always will if there is a universe. But we have to, little unrealities that we are, go through life with a sense of the real. So just imagine for a moment that you can rise even above the unity of the soul. The soul is a world of light and love and power, and a kind of a synthesis is revealed through it. But there are states beyond it. And these states involve at first the real soul, the real ego with a capital E, the spiritual triad, as it is called. And I don't see it here. I have some, yeah, I have that. Spiritual triad. And I can't quite make it appear in the screen, but it's not that important, really. You get the idea because you've seen that triangle above the soul. And we come into a much expanded sense of identity. But what would happen if we could imagine ourselves into the center of our being, which would be the monad? Because at the heart of the monad lies everything I'm talking about. The ability to detect the essence of things. And this would mean, of course, that everything that we see or sense becomes what we are. Everything that we sense, everything that makes an impact upon our consciousness, whether good or bad, beyond good and evil, becomes what we are, or is recognized as what we are. Even the practice of, for a few minutes a day, of saying the ancient Vedantic mantra, I am that, based on thou art that. And that is essence and being. Just look around your inner landscape or your circumstance, what surrounds you on the physical plane or any other plane, and open your heart and skip over diversification and distinction. Focus on something and say, I am that. And the saying of it, the thinking of it, will bring a type of attunement eventually that reveals the truth of the ancient mantra, thou art that. In our Leo mantrams in esoteric astrology, we have I am that and that I am. It's profound. And we also have something even more mysterious in the mantram, I am that I am. I am that I am. And after a while, if we think, at least try to approximate monadic awareness, we don't want to make any claims about being able to absolutely do that, but if we begin to approximate it, we'll find ourselves slipping into just a different mode of perception. And even if the practice of it is just a few minutes a day, it will eventually reap very rich rewards. It will get to the essence of things. The essence of things, the essence of perceptions. It will give a type of participation in ubiquitous being. Now that word ubiquitous means it's everywhere. As a matter of fact, there is no where at all. And there is no space, and there is no time. But it's one thing to say it and another thing to realize it. So let's say that one day we head towards the third initiation. That very first step in eliminating illusion has to be the negation of time and space. Now, what's that all about? And how does that work in what we call the consciousness? Well, we have to find out for ourselves. But using the imagination, we can somewhat get there. gradually, repeatedly, forever and ever. And then our life in universe takes on a different kind of meaning, or, well, I shouldn't even use the word meaning. It's a different experience. And I sometimes, playing with words, I call it an inperience. We're no longer out of it, and we're in it. And it's not only that we're in it, we are it. I think out, in, are. It's just words, but there are those who are out of it, and they are still subject to the subject-object split. You know, the Cartesian split, René Descartes. The perceiver and the perceived are ever different. But then there are those who are in it through contemplation. They are in the object, and the object is in them. And then take it one step further. There are those who are the object. And there is no object, really, then. There is only the subject. And we then have entered, or even more, become the subjective universe. Now, in the later books of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, in books 3 and 4, I think there are 4 books altogether, in the Yoga Sutras, the masters themselves study those books. And the kind of thing that I'm talking about is developed there, the universe within. We become it, and we take it all in until there just is no difference. So we'll stop this now in just a minute. But just look around you, or think of what is around you, or of the objects within your psyche, and very subtle, try a way to become them, in essence. Become, in essence, that which you perceive. Become, in essence, all that you perceive, good or bad. And you can practice that, because it's the main thing to practice when you're dealing with making being real to yourself. Now, as I've often said, we learn the ageless wisdom and all the particulars. We follow Master DK and his voluminous teaching. And we are just scratching the surface. However, we also have another curriculum in which we're just stumbling, let us say at first. But in this other curriculum, we recognize that we are what we perceive. In essence. And we can use I am that, or naught is but me. The first one, a Leo mantram. I am that I am that and that am I. And the second one, a second ray mantram, naught is but me. You know, the waves can come along and wash away the sand castle you built on the shore, and you have to keep rebuilding it. But there is a way to anchor this infuseception in your consciousness, so that indeed there becomes, develops a different experience in living. And that's the point of this type of, I want to call it deeply esoteric pursuit, which parallels our pursuit of the science of relations. This is not about the science of relations. This is the science of non-relations. Does that make sense? Everything that we need to know at our stage of development, we can learn from Master DK in the science of relations and from our own meditation and thought. But this is the science of non-relationship, beyond relationship, identicality beyond relationship. So let's just close this kind of meandering recollection. Only a few of us are here. We'll close it with an Om. One of those words that can help us, you know, somehow attune us to this amazing reality that we are. Not that we perceive, but that we are. Not that we perceive, but that we are.
Michael?
Yeah.
Would you like anyone to share? Because David has written the comment.
Yeah, in just a moment, but okay. I got one Om to go.
Okay. Or should I say one Om plus two? Good things come in threes, you know. So, okay, everybody, why am I, yeah, okay, where are we here? Aha. Okay, Michael, you can read it. Okay, David has written a definition I came across a long time ago about great art is that great art is never merely a representation of something, an apple say, but instead captures the appleness of the apple.
Said like a good Platonist in days of old, you know. Plato had the archetypes, and he called them the forms with a capital F. And they were the very structural essence of what appeared as an appearance. So I guess, how can we put that in our language? I like very much this appleness of the apple and the beingness of existence. And it's not the same word, but there is what exists, apparently. It's also the reality of apparency. I know I'm splitting the words here, but there is something archetypally essential behind every form. And it's not just the outer thing. As a matter of fact, I was thinking about the word intimacy. And what this is all leading to is intimacy with essence, or intimacy with all things by being the essence of all things. So I do get your point, and it is part of a deeper search, which really, just like the Antikarana, it's one of those terms we use in occultism if you haven't heard it before, but it's called the Rainbow Bridge, and we finally all build it in our own way. And we get to essence in our own way. We may have some clues and some hints and some rules based on those who have gone before, but finally it's kind of a lonely journey until one discovers, you know, there is no loneliness and there's only all togetherness. So we're looking for the essence of actuality. In this case, actuality is the apple and the essence is the appleness. So thanks for that thought. Now, friends, you know, we're just getting started again. I guess this is our fourth series. I kept on thinking, well, number 3 is going to be the end, but then for various reasons, I had to break again cyclically, and the conference came up, and there was a lot of preparation in this relative world. And so we're starting afresh, and with the 4th series, which I'm no longer brave enough to say will be our last. And we just have to, if you know of others who would like to get into the essence of things and not just, you know, not just kind of use words about it, but use the words to make it real. It already is real. But we have certain triggers which take us into the perception, in this case, let's say, of appleness, rather than just the apple, of treeness rather than just the tree. I mean, you know, this is very Platonic. He was a great second-ray soul, and he had this idea of the superior world in which all appearances were archetypally substood or substanded. You couldn't have the appearance without the archetype. But even beyond the archetype, which is the ideal form, is pure being itself. Now, you know, it'd be really difficult to define what pure being is, but as you try to define it, one gets closer to it. And one is it, of course, but the consciousness lags. What we have as consciousness to perceive the world is behind or in arrears or not yet caught up with what we really are. Consciousness has not caught up with being for us. Now, there are great souls and great cosmic entities who are closer, but if one was to question them, I think it's an ongoing thing. You might go to the very top of the universe, to use an image, and the consciousness of the universal logos would probably tell you or reply to you, I'm just imagining it, that I have not caught up with what really is, because what really is supra-universal, above and beyond the universe, in the worlds of absolute infinity and the trans-universal deity, and finally, the absoluteness itself. So even the God of any universe, the great logos of any universe, would say, look, I'm just a point. Because when you compare any finitude, any finite thing, with the absolutely infinite, everything, no matter how vast, becomes negligible. So I have this sense that when we're talking about any kind of bounded thing, such as a universe which is bounded, there is the perception at that very unfathomable height of just being a speck, a point, a negligibility, a next to nothing. I think it goes on and on. But that, that takes us far. All we can say is that somehow, well, I don't want to get too much into things, but, everything is of the same essence and everything is of the same size. I'll get into that. And derives from the same root. We have to be careful about using familiar words because we just use them glibly. And that's one of the reasons to invent words so that we wait. What are you talking about? We've got to pause and think about what we just said. And then maybe we'll get into the reality, the appleness of the apple, or the archetype of the appearance. Plato had that allegory of the cave. And men were preoccupied with shadows of the realities that were being projected as shadows. Okay, are there any questions that anybody has or anything you would like to say or discuss or anything like that? We have some different times now for these programs, and I'm going to try to alternate with them a bit because this is really tough on the Americas, and well, unless you're just a very early riser or a very late night owl. But the people, in Australia, New Zealand, Europe, they can pick it up. And then we'll switch next week to an evening discussion, 5 p.m. instead of 5 a.m. GMT. And so at least without undue strain, people can participate a little bit. Anything you want to say or ask? Let's see. Well, there's a few of us.
And no one is raising their hand, and no one has written any more comments.
I wouldn't blame anybody, because, you know, where do you begin? You know, where do you begin? But just practice this week, you know, the I am that, and practice having the feeling of it, the sense of it, the sense of the reality beyond words. And use your heart center and maybe the heart and the head, you know. Those things will help. But the idea is we are much more than we think we are. Infinitely more. If we have any notion of being finite, even if it's the hugest finite thing with boundaries, we will have to know eventually that we have no boundaries. We are the boundless, immutable principle of the secret doctrine. We are that.
Here's something for you. We know that energy follows thought, and everything is energy. No thing transcends energy.
I believe that is correct. And the funny thing is, I was just thinking about that last night. I was saying that energy is just one of those words that people use and define in various ways, but it's a difficult concept. And it falls short of the undefinable essence. Energy implies movement, the power of movement, it implies diversity. Energy, although some people say it is the absoluteness, still falls short of the absoluteness. So the very thing that is being brought forward here, Michael, I was dwelling on last night, maybe a little telepathy, a little exchange in people who are tuned in to this kind of thing. I you know, sometimes you sit down with people and you try to define what energy is, and then you find a more difficult task than at first seems to be the case when you just use the definitions of physics. It's a word, and it's a good word. But just the way the great reality is pointless, it's also beyond any capability of being captured by words.
The word itself, energy, is a concrete abstraction, or abstract concretion.
You could say so. Yeah, you could say so. Well, we seek to move beyond the words, and we will do so. Okay, well, let's, you know, let people know that we have started up again and give them the reminder. There's not too much we can do. I'm beginning to realize that's why I had things very late at night, at the sort of 11 o'clock p.m. time here in Finland. It's so that there was a greater likelihood that people could join us. And we'll have to re-examine that, because there's, we've got the dead of night syndrome going on in the US, and when we go next time, it'll be that way in Australia and New Zealand. Okay, friends, that's going to be it. And let's just come down to earth, so to speak, and say together the great invocation. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Okay, thank you, friends, for being with us tonight. We continue at 5 p.m. with the reappearance of the Christ meditation. It's a broadcast, so it's not a webinar, and we use our one broadcast link, which is the live link. I hope you have it. I think you do. And if you don't have it, write me, infinitize8@gmail.com, the number 8, infinitize8@gmail.com, and I'll send it to you. But by now, it's spread around pretty far. Yeah, and thank you, David, for being here. I know you're new to some of this stuff in occultism, but I can see that you're interested in the essence of things. Okay, so bye-bye for now, and we'll be talking to you soon. Tonight, Tuya gives the presentation on the reappearance of the Christ, the broadcast. Bye-bye.